Hi everybody, this is what we're painting today. Tea and macarons. It is so much fun. It's a little bit of a different technique with how we got the metal look and the cup and saucer, the base coats. So I think that you are going to have fun experimenting with this technique. It's going to be a blast. I cannot wait to paint it with you. So let's get started. Alright, we're beginning this project. The first thing I did was apply one coat of multi-purpose sealer, and then I applied 2 coats of Blue Haven to the background. Now you can apply it with a dampened artist sponge or a dampened 2-inch foam roller, whichever way that you like to apply paint will be just fine. I would not recommend brushing it on, because brushing it on leaves ridges and lots of, you know, rough stuff and irregular strokes and stuff in your surface. So you want it to be nice and smooth. Lightly sand it after you get your 2 coats on. Okay, then I transferred on my pattern lines. And we're going to make this a silver teapot. And then our cup and saucer here. So I've put 1 coat of gray sky on my teapot and 1 coat of sand gray on my cup and saucer. So now we're going to start working on our teapot, and I want to get a filbert brush to do this. So I'm going to grab a size 8. So the first thing I want to do here is kind of show you where I want my highlights to be, and so I'm just going to draw some. This is kind of where I want my basic highlight to be, and of course we'll have highlights out here and on this as well, but that's where I want to lay in a little bit of my highlights first. Now this is going to be a different way of painting, not necessarily way, but applying the paint is going to be a little bit different than I normally apply it. So you can use an extender, a slow drying medium if you want to do this, but we're going to mix some colors and then apply it on here. So the first color that I want to mix is my highlight color. So I've got my white, and I'm going to get a tiny little bit of yellow and more white. I want it to be kind of just a hint of yellow in there. I probably have too much water in my brush, so I'm just going to lay this in here, and I'm going to try to work wet into wet. So I'm just going to work the lower part of the teapot for now. And now we want to create some darker colors on here. So we're going to take our gray sky, which was our base color, and mix a little bit of black in with it. And we want to get a little bit of burgundy. This is deep burgundy. And we're going to start putting in some of our darker areas. And all this is going to be dark down here. I'm going to go pick up a little bit of my just gray sky and kind of blend those right there. Go back and get some of my dark color. Get moisture on your brush as you need it. And I've got this little section down here. Alright, back into my gray sky. I'm going to get a touch of burgundy, deep burgundy in with my gray sky. Just mix it in there. And that might be just a little bit too much, so back out of that just a little bit. Now my highlight is starting to dry. I have my ceiling fan on, so that's why you might want, if you can't work fast enough to kind of blend these together, you might want to use some extender in there. And then just go back and forth with your values here. Put some dark back down here. which is our black and our gray, and a little bit of burgundy in there. We'll be doing this a couple of times. We'll be layering this on here a couple of times, so it will not look good the first time. So don't try and make it look good the first time, because it is not gonna happen. So a little bit darker here. I'm going to wash my brush off real quick so I can grab a little bit more of my highlight color. And then just wipe my brush off and go into my gray sky with that little bit of deep burgundy in it. And then I'm just going to kind of slip, slap, blend that through there. You don't want to play in your paint too much, because, you know, if it starts becoming sticky, it will start lifting. So okay, we're getting a good start to our metal here. So I'm going to mix, I'm going to go to the lid up here. I'm going to go ahead and get the water out of my brush and apply our highlight in here. And I'm going to wipe off my brush and go into some of that gray sky with a little bit of burgundy in it. And we're just going to bring that over and let it meet that highlight. Grab a little bit more of our highlight color and put it in there. Now I'm going to get some of my dark color, which is the gray sky and lamp black, with a little bit of deep burgundy in there. And we'll put a little bit darker side over here. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush off and go into my gray sky with that little bit of burgundy. And tap some in there, wipe my brush off, and just kind of blend them together. So we're getting a good start here. Alright, I want some of my highlight laid in right here. Grab some of my dark. Keep your paint wet, so add water to it as you need to. Okay, that's all of that I want to put in there. So now I want to go into just my gray with that tiny bit of burgundy in it. And wipe off. I need a little bit more of that highlight in here. Wipe my brush off, and now I'm just gonna blend. As I pick up paint, I'm just gonna go wipe it off. Okay, I was down here on this one. I completely forgot where I was at. I was on that little lip there. I wasn't on the lid. I went back to the lid and forgot where I was at. A little bit too much red in there. This is just our first layer, so don't get too worried about how it looks. I don't want you to get too caught up in how the first layer looks, because this is just getting us a foundation here. I'm going to get a smaller brush for that up there. Okay, I want to go over here and let me mix up a little bit more dark. And I'll mix up a little bit more light, which is the white with a teeny tiny little bit of yellow in it. Okay, so I want my highlight to be through here, I think. I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to pick up some of my dark color. And kind of work that in, and then go to my other gray with the burgundy in it. And put some of this in here. And we'll kind of pity-pat blend them together right there. A little bit more of my highlight. And then our other gray. Maybe a little bit darker on this edge. I think it will be more on the shadow side. And then down inside that little hole inside there, we're going to make it darker yet. So we're going to add more black and deep burgundy to our mix. And darken that in there, and we'll come back and shape that a little bit better when we get some final details on here. Okay, over here for this, let's go into some white. Now, if you wash your brush out, try and get as much moisture out of it as you can so that you are not laying a lot of water on your design. Alright, I'm going to go to my medium gray here. A little bit more gray in the mix. I'm not worried too much about if my gray looks a little red on this layer, because we're going to be adding more layers on here. So a little bit darker down here by this cup, and then just a little bit of that medium value. Here, and then our medium, and just kind of blend them out. So we've got a really great start to our metal here. And then up here on this, I really should go to a much smaller brush, so I want you to go to a much smaller brush. Okay, that is a great start for our metal teapot, which will be silver. So the good thing about having a solid color for the background, if we get out of lines or, you know, get a boo-boo, we can touch it up with our color. So I want this to dry, and then I'm going to go erase the graphite lines because I tried not to paint over them. But if you did, it's not a problem because this, like I said, it's a silver teapot, so all will be good. I'm going to touch up a spot here, although I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm sure I'll make another mess soon. Blue Haven is not a very... I might have too much water in my brush, but I might take a little bit to cover up some boo-boos. Okay, all of our lines will be erased here on our teapot. And like I said, you can use a glazing medium on here, an extender of some kind, something that will, you know, some kind of slow drying blending stuff that will give you time to blend those paints together. I did not use it. I just prefer to work quickly, but you know, if you're a slower painter, you might want to use some of that product. And you know, you can find it in pretty much any brand. Hobby Lobby, Michaels, you can find it online at many places, so don't think it's something you can't find, because you can find it. Alright. Okay, this is dry. I'm ready to apply a second coat on here. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. And I'm going to slightly dampen my surface. I'm just going to work on this lower part first. I've got my ceiling fan on, so it's probably going to dry this way before I can get any paint on it. But we'll see. Okay, go into my light color, and I'm going to lay some of that in here. Wipe my brush off. I'm going to go into some of my medium value, which is that gray with a little bit of deep burgundy. And I'm going to work this up to my highlight. I'm going to wipe my brush off, and then I'm going to kind of blend those two together. Just tap and gently blend. And grab some of my darker color and go on this side, because I want to try and blend this side while it is still wet. So I'm going to wipe my brush off and gently blend that color. A little bit more of my highlight in there. And very gently blend it. And then down here, my darker value. Pick up a little bit of that medium value, and then we'll just kind of blend those together. Grab a little bit of water. My paint's getting a little draggy, so I'm going to need some water to keep that blending going. So for my dark value, I want this to be a little bit darker. Right through there. I'm going to wipe my brush off. Just very soft blending here, but you're moving quickly. So like I said, if you need to have some kind of medium, wipe my brush off and grab a little bit of water so I can gently blend that. A little bit more of my darker color down here. My medium. I'm going to make that super dark right there. Let's see how we're already getting the look of metal here. Okay, I'm going to go up to this section here. A little bit of highlight in there. Grab my medium gray. Wipe my brush off so I can blend those two. Grab some dark. Wipe my brush off, get some more medium, and a little bit of light. I just keep putting down just a little bit of paint and then wiping my brush off because I don't want to keep laying in paint. I just need a little bit so that I can blend those together easier. Let's see, I'm going to wash my brush off this time. Get all the excess moisture out. Grab my highlight color. Just going to go right through here. Wipe my brush off. Medium value. Now you can do this the other way that I normally paint, which would be, you know, base coat it. So you could base coat it with that medium gray color. And then come back and shade and highlight with the other colors. Wipe my brush off. Get a little bit more of that light color in here. And gently blend. I got my shape kind of messed up there. So I'm going to touch that up with my blue background color. Yeah, I'll probably have to put a couple of coats on there to cover that. Because I kind of got way out of line. Okay, I'll come back and touch that up a little bit more. I'm going to grab a smaller filbert. This is an 8, so I am going to grab a 4. Could go down to a 6 as well. I want to do this 4 up here on the top. I'm going to have to mix some more highlight color here. And put my highlight right there. I want a little bit of darker gray here. And just blend that with that highlight. And I can get a little bit of that medium value gray to kind of shape my knob here. I want this to be a circle. There we go. Alright, let me mix up a little bit more of my highlight color. White with just a touch of gold in it. I'm going to put that through there. Alright, pick up my medium value. I wiped my brush off. Now I've gone into my medium. Grab a tiny little bit of dark and go ahead and put it in here next to right there. Grab my medium value and put some in here, and we're going to now wipe the brush off and blend them. A little bit more of my dark. I want to blend my dark into my lighter colors, not my lighter colors into my And like I said, we'll finish this off with some basic highlighting and shading like I normally do. This is my medium value. I'm going to grab some of my darker value and lay some of that in here. I'm going to wipe my brush off, pick up a tiny bit of water, and blend. Now I've just got this out here to do. So, not sure I got enough light color mixed here. Lay that in, wipe my brush off, go to my medium value. Up to that spout. I wipe my brush off and grab some water. And if I have any light left, I'll grab that. Wipe my brush off and gently blend those. Grab some dark. A little bit of water. A little bit of water. I can just pick up a little bit of water when my paint feels like it's getting dry, so I can kind of move that paint a little bit. And then this edge out here, let me grab a small round. I'm going to take that medium value gray and shape that spout a little bit better, and then take my dark and put it down in here. Put a little bit of that darker gray. Okay, so that I think will do our metal until we add our traditional shading and highlighting. Oh, except for down here at the bottom, I wanted to make this just a touch darker. So I'm going to use that same round brush. This is the bottom of the teapot here. I want it to look more like the base of the teapot. That might be just a tiny bit dark. Tap in a little bit of lighter color in there. And I think that's looking pretty good. So we're going to let that dry, and we're going to come back as soon as it's dry and do our traditional shading and highlighting on there. You can still build onto this, bring in some more brighter colors, but I haven't decided if I want to go that way or if I just want to do the traditional shading and highlighting on here. So I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, I think I'm going to go with the traditional way that I normally shade and highlight. So we're going to take our dark value that we mixed up right here, and we're going to mix a little bit of black with it just to slightly darken it. And I've already shaded right there, so I'm going to shade along down here. Okay. I am going to shade around my cup and saucer here. Brush and kind of smooth that out a little bit. Spritzing my palette with water. And if you've ever painted with me, you know I spritz my palette with water, and that is the water that I pick up when I'm floating. I'm going to go a little bit along this inside edge. Almost slightly lining it, and that is almost too dark, so I'm going to grab some of our medium value gray and mix a little bit of that in there. We're just going along that edge. I'm up on the very tippy toe tip of this brush. I don't have hardly any paint in it. I took a little bit too much of my shading away, so let's see if I can. Some of that. I just want that slightly darker. This right here almost seems too dark, so take it down just a little bit. That looks much better. Okay, let's go over and work on the spout. We want to do that over there too with that our dark value, a teeny tiny little dot of lamp black mixed in with it. We'll go around our macarons here. Macaron, it's a macaron. We're going to be painting macaron, and there is a difference between a macaron and a macaroon. Cookies here. Let's go up underneath our spout here. Bring a little bit of this down. I'm barely just kind of skimming that edge. I'm going to go around this though. Kind of darken that up. Alright, let's go underneath our lid here. Very much on the very tippy toe, and then I'm just going to take the water edge and drag that paint over to that edge. I want it dark right here. Smooth it out with your mop brush if you need to. Grab a little bit of my medium value. I'm going to blend that a little bit there. Alright, so I'm going to take this darker value down this edge. I'm going to darken that just a tiny bit more. That's our more shadow side. And then up here on the, we'll shade this edge of this lip here. And then right here, there's a groove. So we want to darken right there and very gently go across. Take the water edge, smooth it out, and lighten it. A little bit of this dark down here. Losing my shape here a little bit. Medium gray and reshape. Okay, that looks better. I'll touch up the background there. Alright, I want to darken just a tiny bit. Right here. I'm going to get a tiny bit more black in there. We're still keeping it look like metal. And we're using our mixes, so we've got that little bit of burgundy color in it. Inside the spout here, I'm going to go with a shading of just straight black. Okay, so that's mostly our shading there. I might come back and touch up a few places, but let's add our highlights back in here. So we're going to take our white and a little bit of that yellow, which is marigold. Okay, highlight on here. Just laid some on there and smooth it out with a water edge. I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to do a back to back and then smooth it out. Use your mop brush. The same thing down the center here. Tap a little bit of paint down through there. And then very gently with my water edge, mop this one because it's such a big highlight there. And let's put a small highlight here. Very gently mop that. And we're going to come back and brighten this highlight with some just straight white. Here. I've got a little wide on that, so I'm going to bring some of my medium value back into that. Blend it out. I really feel like this needs to be a little bit lighter here. And maybe just a touch darker here. My dark gray value here. Mop that. And go up on my edge and redarken here. Underneath that little ball. So we've got to brighten up our highlight. Let's wide angle out so we can see that. And I need to bring some lighter values in here. It's a little bit dark through here. Gonna lay a little bit in there. Trying to work it out by adding a little bit of your lighter colors, a little bit of water. Clean up my edge over here. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. We need to add one more highlight on here, our brightest highlight. So I think that's dry enough. I'm going to take some just straight Snow White. And I'm going to put just a little bit up here on this. going to do kind of a back-to-back here, just right in the center. A little bit more paint. A little bit right here. Damp brush is key when you're doing a large section here, so we're just going to streak down the white, flip our brush over, white against white, streak it down, mop brush, and gently mop. Got a little bit of a hard line right here. Too much of a light color out here. And I might have to come back and repeat this white because I don't feel like it's quite bright enough. I'm just going to put it on that edge right there. I'm going to shade on this edge just a tiny bit. I'm going to take my dark value and my light value, if I can get any of it, and mix a little bit so I can kind of make this look a little more rounded out here on these edges. Darken this down in here. Take my mop brush and soften that out there and go down into that very gently. And go around this. And mop that to blend it. This is just that dark value with a little bit of black added into it. I'm just going to smooth a little bit out. Just a touch on this edge. I added more gray sky in there so it wouldn't be quite so dark. You can just play and play and play around with these grays working on your metal, but I think it's a lot of fun. I really feel like one side or the other of this needs a little bit darker. I'm not sure I like that dark on the edge out there. So I'm going to come back in with my highlight color go with just the white. And then go ahead and repeat back to back. A little bit here. A little bit here. This is just straight white. I think we'll keep it more in this just center area right here this time. Small brush here and a little bit of a highlight around this. Okay, our teapot is done. I really like how it turned out, so we're going to move on, and then when we get done, if we need to come back and do an adjusting on the teapot, we can do that. But for now, we're going to move on to the cup and saucer. Now, I based this in with one coat of sand gray, but after I painted this, I decided to change my colors on this. So in my instructions, it will say to base coat with one coat of light sage. And we are going to do this cup and saucer like we did the teapot. Okay, so we're going to do a wet on wet technique. So I'm going to dampen out here. Now we're just going to be doing the outside of the cup and the plate, and everything else will just be main colors, you know, just one color probably, until we go into some detail work. So I'm going to lay in some light sage down here. Is that what this is? Yeah, light sage. I'm going to wipe my brush off, and then I'm going to go into some soft sage, and I'm going to put that up here. And I want to gently blend them where they kind of meet right there. It's a little bit easier to do on a smaller project. That teapot was big, so we had to cover big areas. So I just want that to gently blend where the two meet. We're going to repeat this for sure. Okay, just a little gentle blending there. The plate, we're going to do the same. Oops, I picked up the wrong color. Clean my brush out. I'm going to get all the moisture out of it. Okay, I'm still just using my 4 filbert. We're going to put the light color here. And then the dark color will be out here on the outer edge. Wipe my brush off, and let's just blend those two together. Put a little bit of this green out here. This will probably be mostly green back here. We won't see too much of that lighter color. Alright, so we're going to put our light color first. Light sage. And then wipe your brush off and get some of the soft sage. Put it out here. I'm going to wipe my brush off. I want a little bit more of that light sage in here. Wipe my brush off, and now just gently blend those two. And then here in the front will be mostly that soft sage. We've got two colors going on here, so we want to be able to kind of see the two colors. We're going to add some pretty detail to this cup. Now, the inside of the cup, we're going to paint it only with the light sage. We've got some gray over onto our cup, so this is where we'll want to clean up that edge and make the shape of the cup nice. Pick up water on your brush and blend it in with your paint if your paint is not moving for you, okay? Alright, down here, this is going to be light. Okay, and then we'll have light here. Kind of the edge of the plate, and then this is the underneath. We'll have it light as well. The light sage, the handle. I think I'm going to paint the handle in the darker color. Okay, and we're going to let all that dry, and then we'll come back and erase our graphite lines before we apply our second layer on there. So while that is drying, we're going to go over and get some base coats onto our macarons. Okay, we're going to base our cookies in. I had some original colors planned, but I think I'm going to switch it up here. So our cookie right here, we're going to base in with cotton candy. And that's looking almost peachy color. I might change that out. A little bit more on the pink side. So let me switch out, see how I like poodle skirt pink here. I think I like the poodle skirt pink a little bit more. It's not as peachy, so we'll go with that color. Okay, our next cookie is going to be Shoreline. This color right here. It's a little bit darker than our background color. More pastel-y of a color. Let's see, the next cookie, and we'll have to put 2 coats each on here. The next cookie is going to be Summer Squash. this one down a little bit farther. And then this one is going to be Lilac Meadow. And we'll be putting 2 coats on each one. It's a more purple color. And then in between, the cream filling in all of them is just going to be white. So I'm showing you the first coats, but I'll go off camera and get the second coats on my cookies. I will show you how to get the second coat on your cup and saucer. After we get all of our coats on here, we want to erase all of our graphite lines that we haven't painted over. I'm still just using this 4 filbert brush. Okay. Alright, let's get our second coats on our cup here. So we're going to put our light color down here. Is our light sage. Wipe my brush off and go into our soft sage. Got a little gnat flying around in here. Gently blend them. How you blend them is you just go to the tip of your brush, and where it's the 2 colors meet, just kind of work them into each other. Oops. A little bit of green down there. I don't want that. That was a darker green. I'll keep this light. Alright, and we'll put our light color down here. And inside our cup. Oh, picked up the wrong color. Oopsie doopsie. And then our light colors go down here. Any graphite lines that I paint over will not erase, so when I go to erase these lines, if they won't erase, I'll have to come back and make sure that I cover them up with some paint. Okay, so then on our plate here, we're going to lay some light color in here. wipe our brush off and go into our other green, which is soft sage. A little bit of water so I can move my paint here. I don't want my paint being thick, so I've got to have some water on my brush so I can move it. I'm going to wipe my brush off now and gently blend those two. Alright, over here with the light. Wipe my brush off, pick up some of the dark. Wipe my brush off, and now I'm going to work those two together. Just using the tip of my brush. You want a little tiny bit of water in your paint so that you can move that, or you need to use some kind of medium. I don't like the mediums as much because they thin my paint down too much, I think. Maybe I just use too much of it, I don't know. And it takes longer for it to dry, and I'm anxious to move on to the next thing. So I think I have my get a little bit of water so I can move my paint here. Straighten this edge out a little bit. It was a little wobbly. Get a little bit better edge to the front of that cup. We've still got our white, or our lighter color, underneath it. Okay, I'm going to go off camera, get my second coats here, and we can come back and work on our cup some more. Okay, I've got my second coats over here. I'm coming back to my cup and saucer because I want the lighter color to be more whiter. So on the cup, I've already widened the light sage. So now I'm just going back to my cup, or my plate. Wipe my brush off. I'm going to blend these two now. Light color in here. I'll bring it out farther. Wipe my brush off and grab some of the other sage, soft sage. A little bit out here. Wipe my brush off. A little bit more of that lighter color. Wipe my brush off, and I'm going to blend them. I want it to be kind of a gradual going from one color to the next. And then I'm going to go ahead and put another coat on here. Underneath it. And this had a light color right here on the very edge of it. And I'll go ahead and put just a quick little coat of this on the inside because I got some of that green mixed in with it a while ago. Keep your shape of your cup nice. Your shape of your cup and the shape of the plate should mimic each other. Okay, that looks much better. Alright, I'm going to let it dry and then I'm going to erase my graphite lines. Alright, all of our colors are dry. We're going to work on our cup and saucer here. Now, I'm just going to draw this on with a pencil. I want to put like a viney thing going around here, and then I'm going to put a flower here. We'll probably have some leaves coming off of it, and we'll continue this here. We'll just barely see it here, and when we get to the middle, we'll have a little part of the flower that we're seeing that's going to be there on around. And we'll have a flower here. And continue that vine on around, which I don't know how well you can see any of that stuff I just drew in there. But I did. Okay. And then on the cup itself, we're going to have a flower here. And some leaves and stuff, and then some viney stuff going around the cup. Kind of like that. So hopefully as I paint it, it will all come together and be beautiful. So these colors are a little bit more muted than I thought they would be painting on here, so I'm hoping when we add the flowers it will start to pop a little bit. Okay, so we're going to get some plantation pine out. Plantation pine. We want to go ahead and have our soft sage out as well. And some white. This is for our viney stuff. And our flower, I think we're going to, I want to make it like a muted pink color, but I don't want it this bright pink. So we're going to use wild berry for our flowers. And then we've got purple out here for this, and we've got a darker purple that we're going to be using on it, which is lavender. So I'm going to put a little bit of that out. And we'll put a little bit of, let's put some desert turquoise, which we're going to use on our blue cookie over here. And we'll put our shoreline out. These are going to be colors, you know, like some little flowery stuff coming off of the main flower. Okay, I'm going to use my liner brush to do my vining. So I've got my plantation pine here. I want to thin it down. I've got a little bit of my sage there. I'm going to mix that in. I don't want it too muted of a color, but I also don't want it too bright. Okay, so we're going to just start creating a little bit of a viney thing going on here. We don't want, you know, thick paint, so don't get too carried away. We're going to leave a space for our flower. So I would say I probably use 2, maybe a little bit more than 2 plantation pine to 1 of the soft sage. Very thin paint here, inky consistency. I don't want super dark lines, so if your paint's too dark, wipe some of it off and just try and use a little bit of it. Alright, here. We're going to add some tiny stuff going around the cup. We'll add some little leaves coming off of this too. So right now everything's going to look just a little bit rough. We're in our ugly stage of this cup, but it will come to its beautiful stage. Okay, so we got some little viney things going on there. I'm going to get a little bit of Blue Haven out because that's our background color. I want to carry that into the design somewhere, so we might use it with some little flowers or something on here. Okay, I'm going to grab my little 4 filbert here, and I'm going to make the bigger flower right here. Now you can make any kind of flower that you want. It doesn't have to necessarily look like a specific flower. You just want it to look floral-y, if that makes sense. So with my wild berry color here, I'm going to get some white and teeny tiny little bit of that pink. And we're just going to kind of lay this in as a undercoat here. Just tap some in. We'll tap some in over here, right here, and right here. Okay, so I'm going to load my brush with the white and just scoot over into some of that wild berry. So it's kind of just on the edge of it there. And then we're just going to stay on the edge of the brush and put some strokes in here. And kind of make it look like a rose. I'm going to flip it over so the white is on top now. A little bit more white on my brush. And put some of that along the top of it. And we'll probably have to darken that. That pink is very bright for me. So I'm going to add a tiny little bit of pine green in there. Alright, let me tell you what. I don't particularly like how those strokes turned out, so I'm just going to dampen that and erase it. Dampen my eraser and erase that paint. You can do it because the paint hadn't cured, it was still a little bit wet. Go to my small round brush here because I think I can get a little bit better control with my round brush. I think what I'm going to do is make it darker what I lay in here. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush off, go into some white, and then just maybe just start putting some strokes on there. Get the look of a rose. It's not necessarily a rose, but I want to keep it kind of soft looking. We're going to go into that mix of sage green and plantation pine, and we'll make, I'm still using my 1 round, and we'll make some leaves coming off of this. Okay, and then we're also going to add some leaves along our vine. These are very pale colored leaves. They're not very dark. You can have them go in any direction that you want them to go. Just a few along the vine there. I'm just using a one round brush. I'm just laying it and flicking it up. Lay it down, flick it up. A little bit of water mixed in with your paint. You don't want too much water because then it will fade away, but you want to be able to just lay it down and flick it up and it leave like a leaf looking stroke. So since I have this color on my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and finish the other leaves on the other vines. Just little small laying of the brush. Right through here they'll be a little bit smaller because the plate is very close to us, but we can't see that edge as well. So we'll keep those a little bit smaller, and then as we come over here we can get a little bit bigger. And just keep going different directions because that's going to help. Okay, so we've got some cute vines going on there. I really like that. And my flower here I think needs just a touch more white on it, so I'm going to take this round brush into some white and stroke that on there. And I'm going to take some of my purple and mix some white with it. Make a very soft purple here. And we're going to tap some little flower things. Just beside our roses there. I'll put a third one in here. Maybe right here, maybe not as big. Just a little bit. Just add a little bit of color in there. Okay, and let's take some of our, I think I'm going to take my desert turquoise maybe. I'm going to make just a little wash of this color. Mostly water. A little bit more water. Okay, lots of water, not very much paint. Touch my paper towel, my brush to my paper towel, and I just want to wash some of this color. A little bit too much water still. Around this. We don't want bright colors here. We want to stay soft and muted in our colors. You can even see that. I'm going to have to make it just a little bit darker for you to see it. Okay. I'm trying to keep it just mostly around the flower here. We'll work it out to the outer edges a little bit. Just some soft blue in there. I'm really going to have to work on that flower. I do not like the way it's looking. Smaller brush. I'm just going to grab a little of that pink and give the flower a center. And give it some little stuff going on around it. That's pretty dark. I don't really want it to be that dark, so I'm going to take my white and just kind of wash over it. Hopefully that pink will stay in there. That looks a little bit better. I kind of like that better. Okay, we're going to do the same thing out here with our other row area flower. I still want to do some more there, but while that's getting completely dry, because that was a pretty wet wash, we're going to go out here and work on some stuff out here. Alright, so we're going to take our pink and white mix, about equal amounts there, and put that in right here. Wash my brush off, and then I'm going to load just white and begin adding some strokes on here. Make kind of a little rosebud. Okay, get a little bit of the pink. Definitely need more white in there. Just a touch more white. Alright, let's put some little leaves beside that. That's our mix of plantation pine and sage, like soft sage. Some bigger leaves around this. And we're going to tap some purple. We're going to mix some purple and white. And tap some flowers in here. And I'll do one more down here. I'm going to darken this one up here. Not cover the whole thing, just give it another layer with a little bit of darker flowers on it. And then our wash of desert turquoise. And we'll go and do this to these two as well. Use my finger to kind of smooth that water out. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera and finish these two, and then we're going to come back and add just a little bit more to that. Okay, I haven't washed in my turquoise on those other two areas yet. I want to tap some straight lavender onto my purple areas, just kind of at the base and just a couple out in it, just to make it stand out a little bit more. These are going to be so tiny here because, you know, like I said, we're kind of not seeing the best angle of them. Okay, let me wash in my turquoise here, and we'll have these caught up to all the same place. hard edge there. Okay, so I think we've got them caught up together. So now I just want to add a few little tiny white flowers on here. So I'll put one up here. I'm just using my one round. And I might have to come back in and add some leaves back in, but I'm just basically dotting them in because they're so small. We don't need to. And then these here will be so teeny tiny. I'll just see a little bit of the white, not really defining what that white is. Okay. Okay, and that one's faded down in there so much I'm going to have to redo it. Okay, now if you want to add any more leaves back in here, this would be a good time to do that. Add a little bit of water in my brush. Anything that you feel like you need to adjust or brighten. I mean, I want it to kind of look like an older cup, so you know, we don't have to get super great detail on it if you don't want to. So I think that's looking pretty good. I might add just a tiny little bit of white onto my purple. Just a little bit of a highlight. Teeny tiny. Okay, I think that will take care of that. And like I said, if you want to go back in and add any sharper detail lines on here, you need to have straight paint and you really need to have your brush dry. Okay, so now we're going to start highlighting and shading on our cup and saucer. Alright, let's begin with some highlights on our cup here, and we're going to go with some Snow White. And we're going to go inside the cup here. Along that back edge, we're just starting it. It's going to take a couple layers probably to have that show up. Okay, we're going to go to the outside edge here and along the base of the cup. And we'll continue it all the way up this side. And I didn't get that shape the same. I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight down here, just tap a little bit of white in there. And over here, just right here in this light area, we're going to shade next to the cup there. And down here, we'll put a little highlight. Just tap some white in the center of that cup base right there. Okay, we will definitely have to come back and repeat all of this. So, highlight the handle. And since our light is coming basically straight at this piece, we're going to highlight the top edge out here. Make sure you keep your cup shape there. Let that kind of settle in there a little bit. I want to do one last highlight here on this front edge. There. We'll probably lose that highlight completely when we put our trim color on, but it's good for now. Alright, we're going to shade with some Plantation Pine. And it's a sheerer color, so it won't overtake. So have a little bit of water in your brush, and as you work it into your brush for a float, it will make that a nice sheer color. Good color to start with. So we're going to put this down in the center of our cup, or inside of our cup. Grab my mop brush. Don't want it to be quite that high up there. And a little bit too hard of a line here. Something in the paint there. It's really irritating me. Alright. All these hairs everywhere. Okay, I'm going to take my white and go back along the outer edge here. And I don't want it that far out, really. I just want it along that front edge. Alright, back to our Plantation Pine. And you can go to a smaller brush than what I'm using here. I'm using a 1/2 inch flat brush. So use whatever brush you can work well with. Okay, we're going to shade here. Too much water. So let me get some fresh paint out here. That might have a lot to do with it. Okay, here we go. A little bit too much paint, so I'm just going to wipe it. I wiped it off on my paper towel. I want a little bit right there. A little bit right there on the handles. I'm going to come along the inside of the handle, I think. Actually, we'll come along the inside down there, and up here, I think I'll go along the outside edge. You just need a tiny little bit of paint on your brush. Shade underneath here. very light color. We're not using a whole lot of paint here. We're going to go on each edge of our base of our cup. I'm going to try and keep the shape the same on our base. We'll go underneath that part of the cup. Work a little bit more into my brush. I've got a little bit more water now because we're going to go down here. I'm going to have my mop brush for this because I don't want it to get carried away. It's very, very light shading. You've got to not have hardly any paint in your brush and a little bit of water, a little bit more water probably than normal. Get a nice shading around that. We'll put a little bit back here. And I think I'm going to put a little bit out here on those outer edges. Give that a little bit more form there. Or maybe not. I'm not sure I'm liking that. That might be just a touch too dark out there. Okay, let's brighten up our highlights on our cup here. Cup and saucer. Go back into your Snow White. You want it really bright down along the back here. We want to shape our cup here a little bit more. Actually, let's take that highlight just along the bottom of this part of the cup. It will make the cup appear more thick. We'll shade on the outside edges, I think. I want to do a little bit more on this front edge. Too much paint. Put some in here. So I'm doing a small back-to-back float here where I'm putting some paint in there. I'm flipping the brush over, paint against paint, and putting some paint to that direction. I want to do the same thing down here. I want to create a little highlight. This can be a little reflective highlight down here, bouncing off the table. This edge right here is still part of the underneath of the plate right here. I want it to kind of fade away, get really narrow on these outer edges. more on the handle out here, and this is where you probably may want to go to a smaller brush. Put some in there and then take my water edge and kind of move it around on there. And again, we can just tap a little bit in here and then take the water edge of the brush and just soften that out in there. Same here. Just tap a little bit in there. Take the water edge, kind of soften it out. Create that little highlight in there. Keep the shape of your cup a nice shape here. Okay, I want to dirty up my shading color. I don't really like how kind of stark it is. Okay, so I'm going to take my plantation pine and mix a tiny little bit of the wild berry in with it, which will make this like dirty green. Now, if you get too much of the wild berry, you're just going to completely change the color of the paint. So you just need a little bit just to make that not so bright as what it originally was. And I'm going to keep this more in the center of the cup. Right through there. Grab my mop brush and kind of smooth that out a little bit. Of this over here. And over here. I'll leave in the instructions to start with the plantation pine, but you've got to start with such a light color of it. Don't let it get too carried away. Now I want to really work some water into this paint and make it as transparent as possible. So I want to come out here on the outside edges of this cup and put some of this out here. Here. I want to cover up my highlight in the center there. I mean, if I do, I can come back and repeat it. And we'll put a little bit underneath here, up on the very tippy toe underneath that little lip there. Use the water edge of the brush to kind of smooth it out. And I'm going to put a touch back here in the corner. I really don't like this super dark line along there. So I might have to repaint that and then come back in with some shading color. I'm not sure how that translate for you, but me, when I'm looking at the monitor from the camera, that just does not work well on that edge over here. So I'm going to let that dry a second. Okay, where am I? My dark color, my mix of pine green and wild berry. If you get too much red, you'll turn your green paint brown, so I want a little bit of shading back there. And oops, back there. Smooth it as best you can. A little more white back here. Just one more time right in the center. And you can always pull this down to make it look more like it's kind of reflected down in there. And I think I'll do the same here. I'm going to pull some white up here to kind of match my highlight here and my highlight here. Some little reflective light. Coming up it a little bit more. Okay, and I like the shading on that side, so I'm going to see how I can adjust it on this other side with that dirty mix. Maybe just right there in that corner, upper corner right there, I think will be okay. And I'm just going to brighten with white one more time. Generally with white you've got to go a few times. I'm going to go right here, very right there. Okay, and I'm going to repeat all these places. I know I've already, oops, done it once. But I'm going to do it again. Use that water edge to clean up and smooth out. I think I know another place I need to do a little bit of shading. Okay, get my little dirty mix and make it super duper sheer on my brush. And I'm going to put just a little bit down here. keep the shape of your cup a nice shape. Here and a little bit of brighter. Ooh, that's a lot of paint. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good there. All right, I'm going to add a color around the edge of the cup. And I think I'm going to do that with... Okay, I think I'm going to try this pink color. So, I took the wild berry and a little bit of white and then added just a tiny bit of that green to dirty it up. The white lightened the pink up, and then the green dirtied it up. And I'm going to put this on the rim of the cup and the rim of the plate. Using a round brush, stay up on the tip. You've got a little bit of water in your paint. You don't want so much water that it thins it down to nothing. A little bit fat there. And you can make your handle as fancy as you want it to be. Okay, I got it a little thick in a couple places, so let me see if I can remove a little bit of it. That. And then here it's a little bit thick for me. I'm going to grab my eraser. Very gently. I only want to remove the pink paint. I don't want to remove any other color. I think I'm going to try and repeat that just so it's a little bit brighter. You could probably paint this a silver color if you wanted that silver look. let's add a little highlight on there. Our white. So I'm going to put a little highlight straight up here on the lip of it. A little highlight straight back here. I think I'll put a little reflective highlight right across here. Here. I think I'm going to grab my detail liner here. And a little bit of highlight out here. Oops. Not a wobbly one. Of course, we've got this highlight here. Let's put a little bit out here. A little bit here. And then brighten up there. I'm just putting some little dots on the highlight now. Kind of spark it up. Just the ones that are like where we put the main highlights. And I think that might finish up our cup and saucer. Wide angle out so you can kind of see it at a distance, because that makes all the difference in the world when you can see it at a distance. And I think it looks pretty good. I think I will brighten up. I could probably add white many, many times to this and it wouldn't be bright enough for me, so I'm just going to pull some down in there. Let it kind of fade away. Alright, I think we'll leave it right there for now. We'll get everything else done and see if any adjustments need to be made to it. But I think it looks pretty cute. Pretty cute. And I have a teacup collection, a cup and saucer collection. And there are just so many varieties of cups and saucers. It's just crazy. But this one was really fun to create, so I really enjoyed this one. Alright, we're going to get ready to move on to the macarons. I'm just tapping a little white in here because I think it feels like it needs a little bit of a highlight. Through there. Okay, on to the macarons. So we're going to get ready to shade some color onto the cookie part. So let me get my colors on my palette for these. Okay, I think this is looking really cute. So let's work on our macarons. So let me zoom in here. Our first one here, we base coated it with Poodle Skirt Pink. So we are going to shade on it with the Wild Berry. Now there is a difference between macarons and macaroons, so I'm not mispronouncing it. Just so you know, we're going to shade on this edge, and I've got a very transparent color here. I mean, I have a lot of water in my brush, so it's not very dark. Grab my brush, kind of smooth that out. Now these cookies have a crunchy edge to them, so we are going to create that real quick. So along the edge of the cookie here, you're going to take some of your, actually, let's get some Poodle Skirt Pink out here. Okay, we'll dip into our Poodle Skirt Pink and dip into our berry here. We're going to have both on our brush, and we're going to tap along this edge. And don't make it perfect, it needs to be irregular. And we're just going to make this crunchy little edge on the cookie. Get a little bit of white and tap some white in there. And just pick up between your colors and adjust as you need to. Get that crunchy little edge on there, and we want to do that on the other side, on the other. So if you want, you can tap in, okay, so I'll do it this way. I'll tap in all of the Wild Berry, wipe my brush off, I'll go into my Poodle Skirt Pink, and tap some of that in there. You want to do wet into wet so that we retain that little crunchy edge. It doesn't become all one color, you know. You want them to blend a little bit. A little bit of white. And I think that's going to give us get a little bit more of the Poodle Skirt Pink here. The edges are very light actually, so you could probably just go with the base color and white, because they are pretty light. Those crunchy edges are pretty light. So on the blue one, we'll get our blue color out. Go ahead and get all my colors out here. Lilac Meadow. And we'll make our crunchy parts. So I'm going to use the base color and white, and tap this along the edge. Doesn't look like much now, but it will. I've never led you astray, so please don't get discouraged. We're getting there. Okay, just an easy little tap. Go to the next color. I'm using the base color and white. So all I'm doing is I'm dipping into each color at the same time. I dip into my yellow, then I go dip into some white. And we can get a little variation of color there. Don't make it a perfect little line. You want it to be a little bit irregular. Okay, do the bottom one. Okay, and then the purple one is left with our purple base coat, which was Lilac Meadow. And you don't have to stay up on the cookie part. You could actually bring it down here on the... Oh, picked up some yellow. Go to a different place in my white. A little bit of white here. And again, I picked up yellow. I really don't want yellow in my purple cookie. Just a little crunchy edge will do ya. Okay, so that's our crunchy edges. Okay, so now we'll go back into our shading. So on our pink one with our wild berry. And I'm going to stay up on the very tippy toe of this brush. Oops. I don't want to go on my crunch, I want to go just below it. And on this edge there. Go to a different brush here. Oh, let me get me a smaller flat brush here. Okay, I'm going to move to the blue one and let that other one dry a little bit before I come back to it. Okay, Desert Turquoise is the color we're using here. Here and a little bit I'm up on the very tippy toe of the brush and kind of go along that edge. I'll come back and do the additional shading that it needs in just a minute. Dibby dab right underneath that crusty edge that you made. Okay. Starting to give it a little bit of depth. And go underneath here. And a little bit here. I want to bring that out a little bit more. Alright, on to our yellow one, and I'm going to use, let's see how this is going to look. It might make it look too orange. I'm going to use spiced pumpkin to give it a little bit more of an orange cookie look. So, let me see if I'm going to like it. Go along this edge here. Don't go into that float that you just put on there. You'll erase it. So I'm going to wide angle out so I can look at that cookie, see if I like it that color. It's not too bad. I think it'll be fine. I'm going to leave it that spiced pumpkin, but if you want a more yellow cookie, then you could go with the marigold that we put in our highlight color up here. Come back and deepen all that stuff here in a minute. And our purple one is lavender. Crusty edge. Okay, we got a lot more shadings to do on them. I'm going to bring it on over more and add some highlights and stuff. I want to let that layer get dry. Okay, I'm going to bring my shading onto the other side. I want to keep the highlight kind of in the center. If you're removing your float, then just wait until that is dry and then come back and do the top. So we're starting our little bit of highlight on there. Let's move to the blue one. We'll let that one dry. And turquoise, desert turquoise is our color here. Our yellow one with spiced pumpkin, which is basically turning our cookie orange, but okay, let me mop that one. around all my crusty edges again. And I'm going to tap a little bit of orange down here. These are looking scrumptious. Scrumptious. Looking good, looking good. I want you to definitely be able to tell that there is a edge to that cookie. Now the difference between macaroons and macarons. Macaroons are a coconut-based cookie. Macarons are a meringue-based cookie. It's a French cookie. Completely different recipes. Sometimes they are confused with one another. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to put on the purple one for now, or the pink one. Okay, the purple one, I'm going to do a little bit more on that purple one. Darker by that crusty edge, so if you need to add a tiny bit of black or a tiny bit of green, you can do that, get that darker. They're looking delicious. Okay, I want to shade on the frosting or the filling part. Okay, I think I'm going to shade the outer edges with either your base color or the color that we shaded with. So this one I did the color that we shaded with, very, very sheer color. This one I'm going to do our base color. Just a little bit on the outer edges. We want that to stay white looking, but we need it to have a little bit of roundness to it. The orange one we'll do with the yellow summer squash. And then the purple one we'll do with the lilac meadow. Tiny, tiny bit of paint, plenty of water to keep that paint a soft color. Okay, now I need to go on the frosting edge a little bit with some shading. So we're going to take our shading color, tiny little bit on your brush, and go on this side of it next to the frosting. Up on the very tip toe of the brush. And let's do the blue. I'll do some highlights on these and then they'll be done. Just want to define that edge of that crisp part a little bit more. We're on the white part, just tapping and dabbing barely, almost lining it, but I'm using my shading brush because I can soften it out with that water edge if it becomes too dark. That one does not look like how I want it to look. There we go. And then our purple one. That's a lavender. Don't want it orange because it just takes away from it. So yellow. And you can go back and repeat these colors. On the edges. Don't bring it into it. I want that staying white. Bright white. Okay, now I need to darken the left side of the cookies a little bit. Okay, so I tried it with this one. Let's see if I can do it with each color consecutively here. So I'm going to take my shading color, which on this one was Wild Berry, and I added a teeny tiny little dot of black. So you probably can't even see that I have black on my brush. I'm going to blend it in there. Another teeny tiny little dot. And I'm just darkening that shading color. So the shading on this one was Desert Turquoise. A little bit more of the Desert Turquoise in that mix. I'm going to carry that over. That looks better. On the red one I'll do the same, so I'm going to go back into my Wild Berry. Teeny tiny little bit of black. If your paint turns very dark, you've gotten too much black, so you're just darkening up. A little bit. Alright. Our orange one, let's see. Sometimes when you add black to orange, it might turn it green. So let's see what we get here. Just keep adding. If you get it too dark, I had this too dark to begin with, so I'm just continuing to add orange to make sure it comes back to an orange color. It turned completely brown, so I want it to stay orange, but now it's a dirty orange, so we're going to go with that color. I want to put a little bit underneath here, out here. Out a little bit. Don't want to cover the whole thing. Okay, and then our purple one. So again, we're just going into our paint. I want quite a bit of paint on my brush here. And then a little tiny bit of black. A little more purple. I still have some orange in my brush. I have to wash that orange out of there. Probably picked it up from the black. Alright, I'm going to get some fresh lavender out. Teeny tiny dot of black. Making a dirty purple there. Gently mop that. Still got our highlight to add on here, so then we're going to shade underneath everything, and I think we'll be done with this one. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we just added the tiniest little dot of black into each of our shading colors. And generally macaroons, or macarons, would be rounded on both edges. I've got mine a little flat because they're stacked on top of each other, but let's wide angle out. We haven't got the highlight on the cookies yet, but isn't that looking so fun? I love it. Okay, let's get ready to highlight here. Okay, zoom in. I got some fresh white out here. We're going to do our back-to-back float, kind of like we did over here. Our cup and saucer. So we're going to do a back-to-back float here. Our macaron. Soften that edge a little bit. We want it bright through here as well. And just come down the whole cookie. I don't really want to get into my shading area there. Go on the blue one. Next cookie, yellow one, so we're going to go right through here. And I want a little bit of a highlight here. And our purple one. Okay, now I'm going to come back and repeat that, and this time I'm going to keep it, get the water out of my brush, keep it right here. I'm just walking it out just a little bit where it's more, oops, lighter, a bit wider highlight. And then our purple one. I'm not going to do that side again. this one. I'm just going back over where I walked it over. And then this is really white through here, so if you've lost your white at all through the center, you can just stroke some of that back in there. Let's wide angle out, because I think our macaroons are done. Our cup and saucer is done. A little bit farther wide. And I think our teapot is done. I think it looks alright. Maybe could be just a tad darker. This is black. This is when you can go in here and touch up and make adjustments. It's really just kind of a wash of black. It's not straight paint at all. So you can only do this if you feel like you need a little bit darker in here, in any place at all. Bit darker and sharper line here. I just have a wash on my brush so I can carry it pretty far. Just a wash. Okay, I think that looks super good. Now we've got a shade under here. Create our table line, give it some shadow down here, and then we're going to stencil some words on the top up here. Okay, once you've gotten it to this point, you're ready to shade underneath it. So what I've got here is I've got Lamp Black and Snow White, and I'm mixing a medium value gray here. I'm making just a wash of it. And we're going to put this as our shadow. Wipe my brush off, I have a lot of water in it. I'm going to go around these elements here very carefully. I'm going to mess my cookies up. But that's going to be the, one of the darker areas back in there. Try and stay off of my go underneath our cup. Ooh, too much water. This is a pretty washy color. Just laying in some shadows here. Take the wipe the water out of my brush and then just take the water edge and kind of bring that out. I'm definitely going to darken here. I want to create the table line, so I'm just going to put a little bit back there and a little bit back here. Bring it down just a little bit. So we've got the edge of a table. Okay, that's pretty dry, so definitely want this much darker here. Wait till you're dry, because if you're not dry, you'll just remove it. And just do it again if you want a little smoother look to your shadows. And that's kind of how we're going to set it on our tabletop. And I think that looks pretty good. A little bit darker back here on this table edge. Stay off of your teacup as best you can. Use the water edge to clean that up if you do get some on there. That looks pretty good. I'm going to leave that for now. I think I want to darken right in there just a little bit and maybe right in here, but I want it to get really good and dry. So now we're going to work on our lettering at the top. Okay, I'm going to mark a line where I want my words to be, at least the word over here. So I'm going to mark it from the teapot over. And I have come down from this corner about 1 inch. So 1 inch right here. And my stencil, I want my word T to go up. I want my word time to go straight across. So I'm going to set it on that line and give it a little tape. And now we're going to use a makeup sponge, and you can use the whole sponge, or you can cut the sponge in half like this. I'm going to cut it in half, I think. So that way I can use this half. If I want to do different colors on my letters, I can do that. Okay, so for the word time, we are going to paint that in with, I think I'm going to paint it in with Desert Turquoise. So I'm going to load my brush. Now, makeup brushes are not absorbent, so don't expect to be able to use a lot of paint at one time. So you notice I've got a little bit on my sponge over here, and I came over here away from the paint to tap it onto the sponge. Not too much. We just want to disperse it onto the sponge, but not have too much. If you feel like you got too much, go to a paper towel and tap it off. So we're going to tap this in. Straight up and down. Don't push or mush or slide or, you know, do anything. You just straight up and down movement is all we're doing. I'm going to load a little more on there. That might have been a little bit too much. These are pretty thin letters, so take your time. You know, the tendency would be to mush the paint into that stencil. But just take your time and tap, because it's got some thin lines. But you can certainly paint this on. You know, hand lettering. I love to do hand lettering. And after I take the stencil up, if I don't feel like it's getting quite the way I want it to look, So see, I'm still missing a few lines on there. So I might have to paint those in by hand because the stencil lines are so thin and I don't want to be pushing paint under it. So I'll just go back over the main areas and darken them, make them a little more smooth. My T needs a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to have to finish that out with hand lettering because it's not taking that stencil as well as I hoped it would be. So, and the word T, I want it to be not straight. I want it to be at an angle, but not necessarily follow the shape. I mean, I could have it follow the shape, but I just want a little play on how it looks. And for this one, I'm going to use Wild Berry. And just tap it on here. And the little detail lines I'm going to have to do by hand. So tea time. How fun is that? Would be funner if it came out on its own, correct? Alright, so let me grab my little detail brush here. A little water in my paint. And we'll finish out our lines here. This would be so fun to paint in by hand because like I said, I love doing hand lettering. And I'm using a 10-0 Black Gold Dynasty brush. Now this is where the bridge is in the stencil, and I'm just going to bring that to connect because I don't want any gaps in my stuff. If I'm going to paint it on, I don't want the gaps. There's T, or the letter T, I guess I should say. And then this one. Okay, T. And let me finish out the word time. Again, I'm going to close this bridge right here. I won't zoom you in too far because I might get you completely off camera for this word. Too much water. And that was a bridge gap there. This line here just needs to be darkened a little bit. Got a wild hair on my brush here. I don't like those wild hairs because I never know where they're going to go. Here. Okay. Let me erase that line off of there. And then we can touch up any of our background that we need to touch up. I don't think I'm going to do a drop shadow on these letters. I think I'm just going to leave them the way they are. I think it's more fun that way. And I'm just going to darken up my little shadow down here. Right here. This is straight lamp black this time. I didn't mix it with any white to get that dark gray because I wanted a really dark shading. Let's go for our table edge. Kind of messed up the edge of my So do it with the mix first and then come back and just in your darkest areas add a little bit of black. And it's still just a wash of color. It's not straight black. I think that looks pretty darn good. I think I'm pretty happy with how that looks. And let me move some things around here. Get the good shot of it. Okay. There we go. Tea time. Beautiful piece. Love how it turned out. So much fun. Oh, and you can make your cup and saucer any color that you want. If you've got a blue set of dishes, you prefer to have blues on here instead of greens, go for that. Make it blue. But this was fun. I enjoyed every minute of it. I hope that you guys enjoyed it too. So give me a thumbs up if you're watching on my YouTube channel, and like and share my videos, and ask me any questions, because I love when you ask me questions, because I know that you are involved in decorative painting and you really want to know what you can do to improve. So for me, this is my happy time, my quiet time, my fun time. So I hope that you had fun. I hope you will paint this and share your photos, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for painting with me, everybody. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.